Hello, welcome to Tell Your Story 2023. I am your host, Consuela Me, and thanks for joining us with another wonderful author. Welcome to the platform, Derrick Bonner. I am excited about your book and your interview. First, I would like you to introduce yourself and tell everybody who you are.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Derrick Bonner. I'm an author, and I've been writing for a long time, since the 90s. What can I tell you about myself? I love writing. I love reading. I'm very nostalgic. Hence what my books are about. I've written a series called The Trouble Consultant Chronicles. It's set in the 80s. And basically, I started this series because it seems like a lot of stories about us, about Black people, set in the 80s, always seem to be depressing. Always seems to focus on crack and just a lot of negative stuff. And I'm not gonna sugarcoat and say that stuff doesn't happen. I'm a product of that. I came up from Brooklyn in the 80s, so I have seen our at our lowest, but it's also as our best. I know that Black people, once upon a time, we all raised each other's children. We all had each other's back. But it seemed like a lot, and I'm not knocking any of these stories, but it seemed everything is supposed to focus on the negative aspect. And there was so many beautiful things, the nostalgia, the music, the way we dressed, our slang. I mean, some of the best music came out of the 80s and the 90s, and hip hop started. And all that's in my books. My books are basically about a guy named Tommy Strong, who's from Brooklyn. And he polices his own neighborhood. People don't like to go to the police about certain things. And he became what is called a trouble consultant. You come to him and he'll fix your problem. And these aren't just the typical stories, like every story is around a drug dealer. I talk about there are people who need help in all walks of life. From people who may have a situation with spousal abuse or things that are just going on in the neighborhood. And it's also a love story, and it's also funny, and it's also very witty. And I'll hold up the first copy. This is the very first copy of The Trouble Consultant, Havoc and Mayhem. And this is the second copy. This is the second volume 2, called Wreck Havoc. Basically, my stories are fun. They're very nostalgic. Like I said, they take place in the 80s. And I just wanted to, to break away from the typical drug dealing, pants sagging stuff. And I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm not saying that isn't who we are also, but there's so much more beautiful things to us as a community. And there's a lot of Black love. There's a lot of, what I also like to do is what I like to do is called something I like to say is I educate while I entertain. So there may be a character in there that may drop some jewels about our history, and not the typical Harriet Tubman and or Rosa Parks, but I dive deep and I talk about Black Wall Street, and I go into all walks of life, but it's just something different. I think that it's time we told a different kind of story. And like I said, at the same time, we don't want to keep knocking our people and saying that's all we are is drug dealers. That's all we are is strippers. It's a lot more to us than that, Consuela. And I think people really think about it. There's more than one story we could tell, So hopefully, I've been doing pretty well so far. I've been writing these books. They've been doing very well on Amazon, and I've done different events where I've sold books. I went out there and packed up my cart and folding table, going out to Harlem and different places. My wife, she has my back, and sold a lot of books. It's been doing pretty well. I mean, it's a slow start, but what isn't a slow start?
Well, I have to congratulate you on that, because it is important to tell a different story at this point where we are, especially in the country and with our race as Black people. And you're correct as far as I was having this discussion with someone the other day about hip hop and where it has transitioned in over the years. When
Yeah.
hip hop started, it was to keep us together
Elevate.
as a race. And so these stories are important because right now we're seeing another flip with entertainment, as far as television, movies, music, and things like that. And
Mhm.
during COVID, it was the big streaming services, and then they had, they have all these streaming services, and it is true. I agree 100% with you. While, there's stories out there to be told that way, but there's different stories I think that we're all craving for.
I think
So
so.
that's amazing, and I, commend you for that and keeping that going, and hopefully, this will reach different people to start, like a mini series
That'd be
and get
great.
into television or even a movie. I'm
That's
speaking
that's
that
that's the
in
ultimate goal.
existence for you.
That's the
For
ultimate
sure.
goal.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
so, what started you to write? Was it just that you said, "Hey, we need a different story to tell," or it was something that you had already in your mind and you just had to motivate yourself to put it on paper?
Well, basically, like I said, I saw a lot of the same old stories, whether it be movies or books. And it seemed like that's pretty much everybody wanted to talk about the negative aspect, and they wanted to romanticize it as well. And I'm thinking, okay, you're in this era, this generation. You're talking about a generation era that I came up in. And I can tell you, not everybody was selling drugs. A lot of us had our little Mickey D's jobs and our little Gap jobs, and and we would save up to buy. If you knew a party was coming up, we'd save up to get the sneakers. We save up to get the pants. Not all of us wanted to risk our lives just to look cute. A lot of us didn't do that nonsense. But it seems like when you think about and the thing about also Consuelo, when you think about the 80s, especially in other people's cultures, like white cultures, all the time you think about those movies like The Breakfast Club, um, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, movies like that. And they're
16
always happy
Candles.
going, huh?
I said 16 Candles. You remember that movie?
16 Candles, exactly. And everybody had this fat crib with, and they lived this great life. And then they'll always, and then once in a while they'll trek over to the hood, and it's us with the Jerry curls or us just looking ignorant. And I'm thinking to myself, that wasn't how it was in our neighborhoods. We had just as great times. We had parties, and we had our little love, our little romances, and we had great friends, and we had our moments sitting in front of our benches, just sitting on the bench in front of our buildings, just snapping on each other and having a good old time. But yet and still, whenever you think about us in that era, it's always something negative. And I'm like, that's not true. So there's not any one definitive answer I can give you as to why I wrote this. There's so many, as to why I did this. And but ultimately it was to show and prove that the 80s, the 90s, we were just having a good time. We weren't all out there just risking our lives, like I said, for a gold chain or to impress a girl that ultimately really didn't care about us, but cared about what we could buy for. There were a lot of young ladies out there that really wanted a nice young man who was college bound, who was didn't mind putting extra hours at the supermarket and then coming home and doing his homework and doing the right thing. Doing the right thing. Another 80s reference. But what I'm saying is, there's just so many reasons why I wrote this book, and not and just for the fun of it. I mean, I just love that. Just love nostalgia. I just love the old school feel. I miss it.
Yeah, I do. I've been reminiscing myself about, I think with the current climate that we're in the country, we're kind of resorting back to the old
Mhm.
nostalgia. That's why you've seen so many remakes of so many shows, these reboots
Yeah.
and remakes of
Mhm.
movies and things like that, because it was a different time, especially for our race. And even though we had, of course, the crack epidemic and things like that going on,
Mhm.
there's other, like you said, stories to tell. And there's such a,
Yes.
a big need for Black male authors. I don't see a whole lot in the groups that I'm in or the authors that I do know. And like you said, the writing, when they do start to write these shows, it is about drugs. It's about drug violence, cartel, killing people. And another side of that story is for young Black men is getting out of prison. from that lifestyle and reforming their life and doing,
Hmm.
a lot better. So that's, something that could be added to a story, the actual way you get out of the street life, and that it is possible.
I definitely have characters like that. I have a character in there called Bug Out who was he wasn't in jail, but he was definitely messing with drugs, and he turned his
Mhm,
whole life around, and he went from in the beginning of one of my book to a junkie to becoming somebody that that could be respected in the community, and he didn't have that done to death tale where he wound up like a Pookie or somebody who
mhm.
went out in a blaze of glory. No, a lot of us can get it together. A lot of us make our mistakes, but we can get it together. I mean, it's just so many other stories we could tell, Consuelo. And like I said, and the thing is, I don't have a problem with some of those shows and some of those books. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but it seems like everybody's telling the same one. I'm like, you're just taking the same thing and doing it again, and they're taking the same thing and doing it again. And it seems like that's all we gravitate to. And I think to myself, there was a moment in the '90s where we had stories like The Wood and like Love Jones, you know, and just there's another one, Brothers, and just a bunch of stories where it was about Black men and Black women who were doing the damn thing, and they weren't out there doing, acting for fool. They, they were proud of these people, you know.
Mhm.
And I just wish we could go back to that. And hopefully, my stories like that will catch on, and more people are reading, and it'll catch on, and maybe before you know it, we're telling other stories, and we're showing an interest in everything else except that.
Well, there's definitely a room and a need for it for sure. And even when they tell the stories, because entertainment is going to be entertainment. But
Right.
right now we just don't have the balance. We're missing
We
the
don't.
love. Um, and that's what the 90s for me, I graduated in the 90s. And for me, it was, yeah, the women came out and they were a little raunchy and things compared to what I was used to as far as old school rap, Moni Love, Queen Latifah, MC Light, things like that.
But like you
Um,
said, it was a balance,
it was a balance and we
you
don't
know?
have it anymore.
No,
And our
it's one-sided now.
yeah, our younger generation is craving that. And to say that entertainment doesn't have anything to do with it, I just don't believe that. I mean,
No.
our only influence to our kids back then, it like you said in the beginning of the interview, that it took a village. We don't have a village anymore.
No, no, we don't have
Wrapping
each other's
our
back.
oh yeah, our arms around each other's families, and things like that. It's just so many layers
Hmm.
with that. So I'm happy to hear that you're telling a different type of story
Hmm.
because it's
Hmm.
encouraging, like I said, and it's needed. So, what advice would you give to our young Black men and even women that are losing their life to the streets? You're seeing a lot of women doing a lot of gun violence and crime nowadays.
Yeah.
What advice do you give our young people?
My advice, honestly, it's something that's real simple. Just make do the right thing, and think about who your people are. Think about what your people sacrificed for you to be here. Think
Hmm.
about, and I don't really have to take it all the way back to slavery days or the '60s. Just right now, just your grandmother,
Hmm.
what she sacrificed for you to be here, the things she had to endure. The times she had to bite her tongue so many times, she probably had a mouthful of blood at the end of the day when she walked home because she had to keep her job to make sure that your mom got an education, so that, and then who had you, so you can carry on the tradition. I mean, it's just real simple. Just stop the BS. I mean, we got to go back to embracing each other. It used to be a time when we didn't even have to know each other. We had each other's back.
Hmm.
It didn't have to. I didn't have to have grow up with you playing Skelly, but if I just saw you, it was just a mutual love. It was just a head nod. It was just a nod and a respect. But I don't know. We fall into the wayside, and we need to go back to that. And hopefully, stories like I'm telling will catch on, and people will get that old school nostalgia feeling of, just showing love for each other and having each other's back. and stop doing and stop messing up and stop messing up over each other. You know, I mean, it's like because you were saying something earlier that held true. You know, back then, sure, because somebody's always going to say, well, you had an NWA back then, or you had a Little Kim. Sure, first of all, for every NWA, we had a Public Enemy, or
Mhm,
we had a
mhm,
KRS-One, we had Rakim. It wasn't just that it was more than one side. And Little Kim was nowhere near as crazy as what's going on today. But even still, we had Lauren Hills, we had Latifah's, and like you said, Moni Love, you know.
mhm.
So we had a balance. So yeah, you could stick, you can stick your foot into to the deep end of the pool, so to speak, if I'm feeling my analogy of the quote unquote gangster stuff, but you had so much other stuff to balance it out. And if you want to go even way on the other end of the spectrum, you had the Kid and Plays, and you had the what's this guy's name? Young MC kind of guy. So yeah, clean
Mhm,
cut. So you had like three
mhm,
levels. You had the clean cut like a Will Smith, but then you had the kind of rah stuff that wasn't crazy, but like a Big Daddy Kane or a Rakim. And then
mhm.
yeah, you had your NWA, but you had an option. There's
Yep,
no
we had
options.
options. We
It's
had
just,
options.
and we need to go back to that, you know.
Yeah, and it makes me sad as a race anytime that we embrace certain words to each other to say that they're a term of endearment, when they're actually the terms to call each other is actually disrespectful.
Very,
And
very.
we have a choice. We have a choice of when we come out. We have a choice of what type of entertainment we can feed our minds. We have a choice when when we are artists like you and I that are writers. We have a choice of what we want to write about as well. And so, we want to continue to feed our young people positive things. I always tell my kids that, get up in the morning and feed yourself something positive. um young minds are very influential. You can
I
influence a
think
young
so.
mind. So if are have kids that are playing video games all day and they're violent, you're watching violent movies and you're listening to violent music and it's about sex and so forth and so on, of course it's going to have some effects on your child, if that's the your choice of what you allow as a parent. But for me and my kids, I never let them listen to that type of music or watch that type of stuff
No.
when they were younger. But I see that more and more now on social media where younger kids are listening to that music and
It
they're
boggles my mind, Consuela, that kids. I have two boys, 11 and 14, and some of these kids I see out here are just so grown. I mean, they
mhm,
can recite the entire Cardi B song,
mhm,
but can't even do basic math. It's crazy to me. It's
mhm.
crazy to me. And if you say something, then you're either labeled a hater or an old head or you're judging. I'm like, you know what? It gets it gets frustrating with it. I mean,
It does get frustrating, but you're in a time and space to where you can make a difference, and I'm so happy that you are. One word, one sentence, one book at a time, but it's out there for them to be able to reach.
mhm.
And so I'm glad that you are doing this and telling a different story. So, what is next for you as an author? Will it be a three, or are you going to start getting into another story?
Well, like I said, once again, this is volume one, volume two, and I'm working on volume three right now, as well as I'm dabbling into the script game. And just sorry, my tab was getting a little wobbly. And I have so many stories. As writers, we're constantly, everything inspires us. I'm constantly,
Yeah.
I could be at dinner with my wife and kids, and I'm like, you know what? I used to once upon a time, pull out a little small pad and jot down the ideas, but now now they have those note apps on your phone, so I'll just dabble and you know write out an idea and then jump back to it later. So I'm always writing.
Yeah, I understand that completely. I wrote half of a script for Cedric. He's like my favorite comedian, and there was something
Mhm.
he was talking about when I went to see him when we were in COVID.
Mhm.
He was teasing us saying Arizona never really closed, and we didn't. We really didn't shut down here. But you have to do that type of stuff or you'll lose the thought, you know? And so that's great to hear um other authors and brainstorming and things like that. And so um congratulations on everything. I feel
Well,
like
thank you,
that
sis.
I feel like your books will go far. I really do.
They've
Um
actually been doing well. When
mhm,
we're all said and done, I'm going to tell you the links. How you can get to them. I've also made book trailers. Legit book trailers that look like actual movies, and those have gotten like crazy responses, crazy views, and as a result, the books have done well. And it's doing well. It's just you ever have a feeling that just stick in there, and any day now it's going to happen. You're going to get
mhm,
that call. You're going to get that email. You and I clicked up. And
mhm.
you and I, we started talking. And every day you meet a new person, you network, and before you know it, you and I are sitting across the table. In another moment,
And an
thinking about, remember
awards
that?
at an awards banquet
This is what I'm
getting our
saying.
names called.
Stranger
Absolutely.
things have happened.
Yeah, and also
Mhm,
too, like, you can always start with doing like a short film, like it could be like maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or like even
mhm,
just a preview. And you can submit it to these indie film festivals, these short stories and things like that. That's another
mhm,
option for you to look into because I feel like it will go far. Because like I said, there's a need for it. Um, the entertainment, like I said, it's switching up again. And you have to follow with it. But because we're in a nostalgic period and we want to feel that there was like a warmth in the 80s and 70s, like a love, like a
yes,
warmth. And we just aren't feeling that as a
mhm,
whole, as a country, as a race, period. And
I
I
know,
think that's why the reboots were coming because people have
mhm,
run out of ideas of things. And even now in entertainment, we don't have like the 90s shows that we had, the family shows, and last family show that we had for this generation and time period, which was Blackish, has went off the
mhm,
air. So they're
mhm.
done. So there's a
They're
need
done.
for more writing, more stories, and different stories.
I
Because
believe so.
you don't want to keep seeing the same thing over and over again either on TV.
No,
So this is amazing. I truly feel that this will go far, and I
thank
commend
you.
you and congratulate you on everything that you're doing.
Thank you,
So
sis. I appreciate that.
you're welcome. And it's much deserving. So please let everybody know where they can
Sure.
find you on all your social media platforms, where they can find your book.
Okay. So you can go on chaosonthewrittenpage.com. That's ChaosonTheWrittenPage.com. Chaosonthewrittenpage.com. What else? You know what? I'll even because have you been on my Facebook page?
Yes,
Okay,
that's how I found. Yeah.
okay, so I can send you the link also. Make it real easy, for people to access it. If you go on Amazon, just type in Havoc and Mayhem or the Trouble Consultant with my name, Derrick Bonner. The books pop up. You can read the reviews. You can go onto my website, once again, chaosonthewrittenpage.com. On my page, my wife made this page. It's awesome. It has samples of the book. There's music on there. There's old school music on there. There's just everything on there. Before, so if you're unsure if you want to buy the book, you can download a little sample of the book and read it. Let me see what else I can tell you. In my travels, I've met a few people like who also did acknowledgments for the book, like Rod Digger did an acknowledgement for the book. Oh my God, else am I leaving out? People are gonna kill me right now because I'm trying to. It's like everybody at the top of your head, but you can't think about it right now. But I've had a lot of people show me love on the book, and Grand Poobah, big name, he's shown me love. Melly Mel, Melly Mel is like, who doesn't know Melly Mel? He's like one of the pioneers of hip hop. I actually know this brother. He's shown me love, and and they, they wouldn't put their name out there if they felt, what I'm trying to accomplish here wasn't worth something. So, I know a few people, but I'm trying to get it out there and reach a bigger audience. So, with people like you helping me out and we networking, we're gonna go far.
Yes, you will. And I'll also refer you to some other people that I'm networking with that do
I would
author
love it.
spotlights and as well, because
Hmm.
it's a really good team of people. This season has been so encouraging and inspiring, and it
Hmm.
wasn't planned to be like a uplifting theme or things like that. But I think that everybody is in some type of healing space. If it's not just for you and your family, you're helping someone else heal in a healing space. And so that's been the whole theme of the book fair. It's been so many talented writers on the platform, and like I said, we don't get a lot of the press that we should, being indie
Yeah,
authors. And
yeah.
most of the time, the authors, like when they're celebrities, of course they get press, they're celebrities, and they don't actually always write their own books. They don't, they give ideas and bits and pieces of what they want in the book, but we actually take
Hmm.
the time to sit down
Yes, this is
and do the
true.
work and do
Hmm.
the author. And I'm not knocking that either, because they're celebrities and they've had some great stories to tell as well.
Hmm. Hmm.
But it's time for some new voices and new authors and things like that. So I will actually have your book. I always purchase all the authors' books, but I'm
Hmm.
behind on the reading for this season because I've had quite a few authors this year. So I'm excited about that too. And I'll also too, like, we'll do a catch up interview, or eventually, like, where are they now and things like that too down the
Hmm.
line, because I plan on continuing to do this, and it'll grow and get bigger because it has. And so is there anything else that you want anyone to know before we go today? Any encouraging words, any inspiration?
Um, Stick with it. Stick with it. Something happens, for some people overnight, literally overnight, but in some people it takes a minute, and don't get discouraged. And all I can tell you is I'm not going to stop until I make it. And I hope you out there are feeling the same way. And once again, please support Black authors. We need help. We need your
Yes.
support. So
Hmm.
once again, it's chaosonwrittenpage.com. Um, and visit my site. And there's videos on there. There's book trailers on there. You're going to have a good time. And it's even set up to where when you go on there and you start reading, you can click the link and it'll play music in the background, because when I write from a music standpoint. So I'll throw some headphones on and it'll take me into that world. So I try to have the reader experience what I experienced when I was writing it. So it may be the bridge is over, it might be a little Big Daddy Kane while you're reading something. It might be a little the barge for a love scene. It'll take you into that moment. And I mention these books. I mention these songs in the books. And like I said, let's just tell some different stories and let's just have a good time.
Yes, thank you. I completely agree with that. Thank you so much, Derrick, for coming
Thank you. Thanks for
on.
having me, Consuelo. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Derrick Bonner, you guys go support him, support Black authors, Black male authors, especially. We don't have a lot of them. And again, thank you for coming on.
God bless.